Um, Welcome to the Sutliffian Report. Today, we have Todd Bensman with us. Todd is one of those outstanding journalists, national security experts, and all around knowledgeable on immigration and the importance of keeping our homeland safe. Todd, you've been doing some incredible work looking at a migrant caravan heading up from Honduras. I was reading your article, and I noticed that you said it was headed towards America, and you expressed the concern if Mexico would continue to prevent a massive migrant caravan from passing its border. What can you tell us about this?
So the caravan is no more. It broke up probably the day after I published that piece, but the story is still just as interesting and pertinent to American policy at the border. What was happening was you had a migrant caravan form up in Honduras that was probably about 1,000 to 1,500 strong initially, and start to move up to Guatemala and then over the Mexican border. The reason why it's significant that a caravan would form now with the American election over and putatively anyway a Joe Biden presidency a month or two away is that the Trump era policies that have been put in place to break up those migrant caravans would be tested by this one, that it would, if it were to fall, meaning that the Guatemalans, the Hondurans, and then the Mexicans were to let this caravan pass, instead of breaking it up, then new migrant caravans would form behind it and start another crisis to the southern border. In this particular case, it was a little bit early, it was a tad early. And so it didn't happen. The Hondurans broke up the caravan before it could even leave the country. Probably 400 participants got into Guatemala where they were rounded up and sent back to Honduras. That's all good for that particular caravan. The issue really is when Biden takes office, whether the Mexicans, the Guatemalans, and the Hondurans will feel the same commitment to breaking up the next caravan. And that's kind of what we're looking for here. That caravan tested the waters. The waters were too cold for that caravan, but the next one may very well find the waters warmer and more inviting.
So are you saying that it was broken up because of COVID-19 pandemic restrictions, or were they just doing good national security?
No, they were not doing good national security. So Honduras and Guatemala and Mexico all have pandemic-related border closures in place. So ostensibly, they were enforcing their pandemic border closures. But actually, what's probably going on, there's probably a greater likelihood of what's going on is that phone calls were made from the White House or from the administration to the Hondurans and the Guatemalans, hey, shut this down. We don't need a big problem like this right now. And they did that. In the past, the Hondurans and the Guatemalans have done nothing to shut down those caravans. They'll put up a kind of a police tape and a cordon across the roads, and then the caravans will just bust right through them and just keep running, and nobody even tries to stop them. So under the guise of a pandemic border closure, they did stop at this time, but I think it was really Trump, the aura of Donald Trump behind that.
Wow, I didn't realize that was that big of an influence. It's that's kind of exciting, but it's kind of sad at the same time, because the Electoral College has now voted in Biden, and this is the guy who said he would basically reverse everything President Trump has done on day one. He's trying to erase Trump. So
Yeah,
that's it. The Electoral College has voted. How is Biden taking office going to affect our national security with these migrant caravans then?
we have to remember that Donald Trump was the kind of a president who was not afraid to use hard power on our allies to the south. So, for example, Mexico has a 6,000 troop National Guard deployment on its southern border with Guatemala that has broken up 4 or 5 different caravans already. Why is the Mexican military down there? Because Donald Trump said, if you don't do something on your southern border, we will destroy your economy with progressive trade tariffs. So you have a troop deployment. The same kind of arm twisting went on with the Guatemalans and the Hondurans with foreign assistance and grants and aid and humanitarian aid and that sort of thing. We'll pull it if you don't do something. Take care of this. Agree to deal with those migrants down there on our behalf. The Biden administration, Joe Biden, there's really nothing about the makeup of Joe Biden that would ever threaten the Mexicans with debilitating trade tariffs or threaten to pull aid from Central America or anything like that. So what I predict there is that after an appropriate amount of time, the Mexicans will pull their National Guard off of that border. It's expensive. They would rather be doing other things with that National Guard, counter drug things. And once that happens and the credible threat of tariffs and other terrible things goes away with Donald Trump, you should start to see a mass migration form up and head to the southern border. It's already started. We're already seeing about 2,000 to 2,500 migrants every day apprehended at our southern border. That's up about 40% from last month, about 70% from the month before. It's doing this already in anticipation of a very welcoming Biden administration toward immigrants. They've messaged this. They've said we're going to get rid of the Trump obstructions and the pushback policies, wait in Mexico, third country, safe third country, all of these different kinds of policies. We're going to open up asylum again. And the biggest one of all is we're going to work toward giving everybody who can get here in time an amnesty, legalization. So that word has been heard throughout the Americas. There is a great buzz happening and we're seeing that on the border now.
Just to be clear, since you said amnesty, doesn't amnesty has to be a legislation, or do you think Biden will attempt to write it into an executive order?
Ideally, you would need legislation, but what'll probably happen instead is something called, it's more of an administrative policy called parole in place, which essentially gives work permits to everybody who's here on a renewable basis. I don't know what it's going to be at this point, but
wow,
it's called parole in place. And essentially, once you provide parole in place to 15, 20 million illegal immigrants who are here illegally, it'll be like TPS. You'll never get rid of it. Everybody will essentially be legalized at that point. Watch for the buzzword parole in place when the Biden administration gets in. Kamala Harris has very loudly proclaimed support for this. There's a lot of pressure on the Biden administration to do parole in place. And that way you don't need legislation. You just wave your wand and everybody gets work permits, temporary work permits that are temporarily permanent forever, for all time. You'll never deport anybody who's got a legal permit to work.
Wow. This brings up so many other questions. I had not heard of this concept, so this is kind of a mind blower. I mean, that's it's a workaround is what it is. It's a workaround, like you said. I'm just that kind of blows my mind. It did not expect that one. Wow. Um, with that said, let's what about other national security issues that would be more lax? Now, my biggest concern again is with terrorism, and yours has been, and Biden has said he's going to end the quote Muslim ban, which is really a non-existent ban.
It's
He's
travel.
going,
It's a visa cap, a sharp visa cap on 13 countries,
yeah,
7 of them which are Muslim majority. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, this is a campaign promise. I believe that Biden will follow through with that immediately upon taking office, or certainly as quickly as Donald Trump did when he entered office. It'll be symbolic. Big boogeyman to the Democratic left. The Muslim travel ban is what they call it. The issue with that, and I've written about this at length, the big problem, the real reason behind the Muslim, quote unquote, Muslim travel ban wasn't to keep Muslims out, but to ameliorate the problem of vetting migrants from and refugees from those countries. So, for example, Libya is on the list. Well, Libya is in anarchy. There is no government in Libya. There's nobody that one of our asylum adjudicators could call up on the telephone over there and ask for an intelligence share. Can we get your criminal records on this guy that we're considering letting in on a visa? So there's this blank slate. Plus, there's a lot of jihadis in Libya, lots of different groups, armed groups. To open up the gate on visas from Libya without being able to vet the people coming in, security vetting to find out who they really are and what their backgrounds are, really heightens the national security risk to the United States, in my opinion. And it's not just from Libya. Places like Somalia that are on the list also have no possible capacity for cooperating with our people on security vetting to find out who people are. Somalia didn't have a government since 1991. People didn't have birth certificates, driver's licenses, nothing. There was no government for 30 years over there. So real challenges in vetting people who are trying to get in. And what I point out in my writing is that there are many examples of terrorists who got in on regular visas from those very countries, places like Syria, Yemen, Somalia, Sudan. I've written about these at length from court records. You can read my material about how they gamed the system. They hid their terrorist backgrounds and proclivities from the adjudicators very easily. There was nobody to call. There was no record to check from these countries. And they came in and plotted to do terrorism, and in some cases did terrorism.
now this has been happening throughout Europe, and I think I read a recent case, I thought it was Canada, where they found somebody. It might have been another country in Europe, but yeah, it's like 10 years later, they're discovering these people have a terrorist background and they need to be sent back.
But sometimes it's not even 10 years later. It's like a month later.
Yes.
When the guy attacks, and stabs a bunch of people to death in France. But it's not just France where this happens. From those countries, these are the same countries whose citizens are coming to the United States over the border, and also just we're going to start giving them visas again, not able to vet them. And I'm going to tell you right now, you're recording this show, you are going to have terror attacks, and you're going to have plots disrupted, and you're going to have a heightened number of cases of people who got in improperly vetted, insufficiently vetted, who present a a real threat to our people with this. And that's a big problem. I mean, that's going to happen right away. So, I'll be on the lookout for that. And I'm sure the FBI will be prepared, and all the, Homeland Security agencies are going to be, getting ready.
Well, I will throw out my prediction in that case. In the case of a Biden presidency, I hate throwing out things like this, but the number one attack that we truthfully cannot, that is probably one of the least preventable, is the truck jihadi. And I don't want to see another one, but my prediction would be that, unfortunately, because I believe everything you're saying is 100% accurate, that my prediction would be that within, first 2 to 3 months, we may have a surprising spike in things like that in this country.
Oh yeah. Once the spigot is opened again, people forget. We had a terror attack in 2016. This is just one of many cases that I've written about. We had a terror attack on the campus of Ohio State University.
Yes.
2016, that guy had been brought in from Somalia, which is now on the travel ban list. And he gets in with his family, already radicalized. And within a year or two, he's driving a vehicle, a Honda Civic, into a crowd of fellow students, gets out with a butcher knife and stabs a bunch of them before he was shot to death. That sort of thing doesn't happen now because we have restrictions on those visas. That guy came in as a refugee, and there are lots more just like him, some of whom we caught in the very nick of time. So, we don't catch them all either.
I would like to see us do this. My suggestion to changing the quote refugee or immigration policy would be to adjust it to accept a part of Israel's policy with immigrants, or I would say, well, their population isn't immigrants; it's the Muslims as population as a whole over there. If you have a terrorist and he does a terrorist action, they destroy the home. I'm not into destroying the home. I'm into deporting whoever was part of that family. You commit one act of terrorism, your whole family, the whole family that came with you, I don't care if it's grandma, grandpa, the whole thing, your whole family gets deported back to whatever country they came from. That is something I think our country is based on doing. We don't necessarily judge a family for what one person does wrong. We base things on the individual. But in this case, I think if we implemented a policy like that, it might make people less willing to do these evil deeds. That's all I'm looking at. It's crazy.
Look, I mean, from my point of view, the issue really is about security vetting.
Yes.
You can't vet the people that you're letting in, then maybe you shouldn't let them in.
I agree 100%.
I mean, that's just your compact with society between, government and society is, you're obliged first to protect your citizens, and second to help the rest of the world however you can. But, that's just me. There are a lot of people, just like in Europe, there's this strain of kind of a progressive liberal attitude that, really we owe the world something, that we should, let everybody in and provide safe harbor and all the rest of that. And I mean, you have bloody mayhem from one end of Europe to the other as a result of that. It's still going on from the 2015, 2016 migrant crisis that they had from these very countries.
Wow. Wow. we have I'm frankly scared. I don't want to go back. I mean, we've made a lot of progress to make the country safer, and I mean, we're only talking within the past 2 or 3 years that we've made what I would consider a huge leap and bounds in the vetting process and making sure people are who they say they are. And it's only in the past few years we've started really clamping down on what it means to come to America and protecting our borders. We've only just begun to start this and to revoke the process and go the other direction. I'm
Really, what we have to do is understand what our vetting capacity is, for and match it to to caps on how many we'll let in,
oh,
to
that's an interesting
actually be vetted, and from where. We have, hundreds of thousands of Chinese students here, and a great many of them are turning out to be spies for the PLA, who are stealing our research, our most sensitive research from our universities, by posing as regular students and researchers on J visas and F visas, which are student visas and cultural exchange visas. And every day there's a new press release from the Department of Justice talking about, we found another spy at UCLA. And when you look back at the cases, it turns out that all our adjudicators would have had to have done on the front end is Google the person's name.
That stuff still makes me laugh. Yeah, the person's name, they were dressed in their military uniform. They have their picture on Google or Yahoo or whatever, Facebook. Yeah, like you said, all they had to do was do their job, and they could have caught him.
Google the guy. They have all their military insignia, and then they're signing under oath, swearing under oath that I am not a member of the Chinese military in any way, shape, or form. All of them are. Every one of them are that have been caught. But I mean, that's just my point, is that we allow so many Chinese students in here that our adjudicators are swamped. They can't possibly spend any time Googling everybody.
So that's what it comes down to. We have to equate the possible the possible entries to the amount that can be vetted. And that's not a current policy.
Right now, I will say that under one of the early Trump executive orders, that he established what's called the National Vetting Center, which is a way to sort of bring all the agencies under one roof that need to vet, and apply resources so that they can be tasked, I guess, from anywhere in the world to vet people. I've been in touch with those people recently, and they are a growing concern. They're in business under CBP. The problem is that they're still fairly new and they're not up to speed yet. And the big question I'm going to have with a Biden administration is whether they're going to keep that in play. Just because, I mean, it was Trump, so we're going to kill everything that Trump did. But that National Vetting Center actually is nonpartisan and apolitical need for the national security, for the good of the people. I'm sorry that Trump came up with the idea, but I really hope that the Biden administration will maintain that and build on what they've started over there, because there could be over time a real capacity expansion for vetting.
I see all of the, maybe I'm off. I see all of the concepts of national security as not being either Republican or Democrat, but just being pure United States of America, red-blooded citizen type thing to do. Unfortunately, we have two, well, I'm going to say we're going to have a Harris presidency. I will not, as much as Biden may be president for a month, maybe two at the most, I doubt that. I believe we're going to have a Harris presidency, which will be far worse than anything we can imagine for Biden, which is even scarier. Then who's in line after her, whoever becomes the VP. And I honestly, I'm not sure. I've heard things that just make me surprised when I hear them. I've heard King Andy may be touched. King Andy is Andrew Cuomo, and he may be touched for AG. And those of us who have to live in the kingdom of Andy are happy that he may be touched and relieved of and save us from his rule. But
The devil, you know,
yes,
you know,
well, that we're not concerned about who will be next. That's not it. My concern would be, can you imagine him? I mean, he would. You think Biden has lost his marbles? This man is a megalomaniac and believes he is king. He's the ruler. He would not be. I mean, he's for national security to the extent that it protects him, and beyond that, it's his priority. So, could he be the next VP touch? I don't know. But usually we go East Coast, West Coast, or North and South when we put candidates, president and vice president together. So it would fit.
but you know, we have been told that Ali Mayorkas is going to be tabbed for Department of Homeland Security,
Oh yeah.
and that looks like it's shaping up to be a confirmation battle in the Senate, because Mayorkas has a history in public service already that is marred with ethical problems and identifiable strong arm management issues with his people. It seems like everybody that works under him ends up blowing the whistle on him.
Oh, that's just the kind of guy you want to put in charge. But isn't it like putting Biden in office again? Oh my gosh. Yeah. If you can give the man any money, yeah, it sounded like when I read your article on that, it sounded like if you gave this man power, and let's say you lived in another country and you wanted a favor, you could get a favor. But if you're Joe Schmo, forget it.
If you're a powerful senator, congressman, or if you're really rich and Democrat, and you give him a call to help your friends out, he's the kind of guy who's going to follow through for you. God knows what he's getting on the back end, if anything, but it sure looks terrible. That's a really bad look, and we'll be hearing about all of that sort of thing if it gets to a Senate hearing. So, and I think they will.
I think they're going to have to pull him for everything that you've revealed. I think it's going to be far worse when it gets down to the Senate hearing, because I think the details are going to be even worse.
I knew that was the case when about 2 weeks after I wrote my analysis of Mayorkas' career, that the Associated Press replicated it, and just
Yeah.
a couple of days ago. So, once the AP is following me on all of that, that there's actually probably a problem. There's probably actually something going on.
Well, they haven't recommended anyone for office yet that I have seen without scandal or severe issues. Ethical issues is what these all are. I haven't seen anything other than ethics. We're talking their current criminal history considered, again, ethics, but I haven't seen really. Ethics are huge if you're going to be in government service. If you can't keep your hands out of the cookie jar, if you can't keep your priorities straight, like keeping America safe, things like that. Those are big issues. Wow. We've covered a lot. Todd, I want to say thank you for spending your time with me and sharing this information. Please do not stop what you're doing. We're gonna need you more than ever.
Thank you.
It looks like in January on. Thank you.
I'll be there. I'll be writing.
Hopefully I will be working towards taking this show into a broader forum. That's what I'm working on. We'll see. God bless, Todd.
Yep, you too.
Okay.